Welcome back. Today I'm here with Jess Rothenberg,
Hi.
the author of The Kingdom, which is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love it. Are you going to tell them a little bit about what The Kingdom is?
Yes. The Kingdom is a blend of the HBO series Westworld meets Disney World with a splash of the Serial podcast. And it's basically set in this futuristic theme park where they have extreme virtual reality and they have formerly extinct species that have been brought back through a mix of bioengineering, and they have the Fantasists, who are these 7 beautiful hybrid android girls who've been created to make dreams come true. Until one of them is accused of murdering a park employee. It kind of sets off the murder trial of the century. So the book goes backwards and forwards in time as we kind of see flashbacks of her life at the park, and then in the present day we see the unfolding of the court case, and like we're trying to piece together the clues and figure out, did she do it? Could she do it? And if she did do it, is she, you know, can they hold her accountable for her actions?
Right.
So
yeah. It's very juicy.
It's very juicy. It's romantic. It's thrilling. It's I joke that it's like a hybrid, just like Anna. Like the book is many things.
It really is, which I think I actually have a question about that.
Okay.
I mean, and that was the thing, is I think it's very much a genre crossing book.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's interesting to me. I feel like we're seeing a lot more of that in YA, at least, these days.
Sure.
And so I guess I would wonder, how would you classify it, and what are your thoughts on that trend, if anything?
Well, I am a big fan of books that kind of break boundaries and don't necessarily fit in a pretty little box.
Same.
You know what I mean? I've always sort of responded to books that make you feel like you're part of the story, whether or not it's, you know, through mixed media, photographs, or whatever the thing is. It just kind of adds to the format of the story and kind of adds a depth to it and makes it feel more immersive. And I have an editorial background, so I understand, of course, like the importance of a saleable pitch, and booksellers need to position books, you know. But I think it's exciting to bend and blend genre and to, you know, create something new.
No, I agree. And I mean, you have kind of, it's like thriller and sci-fi, but with these like fantastical elements to it, which
and
is
one I
really
hadn't heard
fun.
before was cli-fi, which climate fiction, which was new to me. I was like, I
interesting.
love that.
Yeah.
So it's a hybrid for sure.
It
It's
is.
so many things.
There's
and
so
I
much
love
going on. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
a huge book,
I
but
know.
like, there's so much going on.
Yeah, for sure.
What inspired you to write The Kingdom and these android sort of princesses, fantasists?
Yeah, so The Kingdom is sort of, it's kind of a two-part question. The first part is that my mom worked at Disney World when she was in college. I grew up hearing all these crazy stories of like what it was really like behind the scenes, and some of it was very magical and very cool, like the tunnels below the park, and you know, finding out what's really in Cinderella's castle, and like they would close the gates at night and the cast would run through the park and ride all the rides till, you know, dawn and stuff, and that was super neat. And when you're a kid, like there's nothing cooler than like
Of course.
hearing all of that. But I also heard some of the darker things too, like difficult personalities and divas and sexual harassment from guests and from managers and that kind of thing. So it kind of set this idea in my mind of the fact that you can have a beautiful, glittering place with like a lot of kind of darker truths like lurking below the surface. And so I always thought a theme park could be a fun and kind of maybe scary place to set a story.
Yeah.
But then the other part of the question is, as I've been working on it over the last 3 or 4 years, our culture has just, there's been such a shift, and you turn on the news and it's a disaster. And I wanted to kind of use the book as an opportunity to explore my thoughts on so many issues that are so important. Female beauty standards, dangerous beauty standards, commodification of female bodies, climate change and the environment, technology, and of course Me Too, and so many things. So that's kind of, the book became more complex as I worked on it over the years. I hope it'll spark conversations and also entertain, you know.
No, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's part of what's so powerful about it, is you don't want to put it down,
Right.
but you cover so much thematic ground. One thing that I thought was really interesting is you do, like you said, you tackle kind of the commodification of beauty, and then I also saw places where it felt like it was the commodification of diversity as well, which I thought was really interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not something that gets talked about much, so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So if you could talk a little bit about how you tackle those issues in the book and why you feel like they're important to talk about.
Going back to the Fantasists, you know, they are these beautiful kind of girls. They're not quite human, but they're not fully robotic. They're kind of a blend. And they've been created as sort of the ultimate female fantasy. They're desired, but they're also used, and they're objectified. They have no voice. They have no agency. I wanted to kind of explore the idea of how far would we go to create this perfect female person and at what cost, kind of build up this fantastical world around that concept. And then in terms of diversity, I wanted to explore kind of the idea of tokenism, because at this park, you know, the girls are kind of, they've been created in this very kind of idealized version of It's a Small World After All. So there are 7 girls, and they are representing 7 lands around the globe, but they're not real girls. They're technological creations of like a giant corporation.
Right.
So they have no cultural or racial context to their identities. It's more of a cosmetic marketing tool rather than like maybe the kingdom really caring about cultural inclusion. And you know, I wanted to explore that because I think that's something that we're going to be seeing a lot of. So
yeah, I know there was one line in there that I just thought hit that home where it was, I can't remember, it was one of the girls, something about her African jewelry made in Taiwan.
Yeah,
or something like
for
authentic
sure.
jewelry, and I just think that exactly the corporate sort of
definitely, and it was
implication.
just like it's a very messed up thing. I think there was definitely something I wanted to explore, that sense of like, you know, but how can they have cultural identities if they're not real girls? And they're even surprised sometimes, you know, they have downloaded languages and they've you know, their costumes are so specific to their culture, but they have no real experience or background with these identities. So.
Right, yeah. That's really interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. You do deal with sexual harassment and sexual assault in the kingdom.
Yes.
So how did you approach writing about these, especially for mostly a teen audience, and what are you hoping readers take from that?
Well, so yes. I will say that, you know, I don't want to give anything away for people who haven't read, but, you know, for sure I wanted to kind of explore some of the darker undercurrents to this happily ever after place. The truth is that these fantasists, these objects of beauty and desire, are created to obey and to say yes, and the people in charge are, you know, mostly male, and that ranges from not just the scientists at the park, but the people who work at the park and, you know, who interact with the girls on a regular basis. There's nothing explicit that happens on the page, but certainly, you know, I allude to abuse and exploitation. I wanted to kind of explore some of those, you know, the idea of desire and power and who is allowed to have it and who's allowed to wield it, some of the systems that fuel toxic masculinity and silence female voices, and hopefully show that these systems need to be, you know, dismantled. And I think we're talking about it, you know,
more than we have.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So, but again, I didn't want to make anything too explicit, and I know the book is, people are commenting that it's a lot darker than maybe they would guess from the cover. But it was important to explore these issues.
I agree. And then, like you said, I mean, it's talked about, but you don't get kind of the explicit on the page.
To me, it's more effective to allude and to kind of have that creepy undertone. So, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to a little bit more lighter, lighter
fantastic.
topic.
Yeah.
What were your favorite and least favorite things about writing Kingdom?
So, favorite thing for sure is getting to build this crazy futuristic theme park world. I mean, to a person who loves to imagine things, what's more fun than imagining a theme park like of the future where there's all kinds of virtual reality and blended hybrid species? For me, I'm obsessed with animals, and I was so excited to, you know, figure out, well, how would it work if a horse was blended with a butterfly, and how would it work if a wolf was blended with an owl, or, you know, whatever crazy combinations I could think of. Exploring the kingdom as I went, getting to know the twists and the tunnels, enchanted forests, and, the different places where, you know, I thought readers would really engage and have fun and get lost in that world.
It's really cool.
Thank you. I wish, honestly, I mean, I think I could have kept exploring for many more pages, but deadlines.
Yes.
And then the harder stuff, I'm a huge fan of like core TV and of crime thriller podcasts. I listen to them obsessively. So you do?
No, but I'm saying it makes sense given.
Totally. In a way, I was so excited to have that be a big element in the story, but it certainly made it harder to write. Because when you're plotting a murder mystery and you're plotting, you know, actually it's not even dual timelines, it's tri-timeline, and it's very tricky to keep everything paced correctly so that clues are properly seated and nothing is revealed too soon, or things aren't lagging, or you're, you know what I mean? It's just, and it can make you crazy, and the past plot line is 2 years in the past, and we're working up towards the trial.
Right.
So there were certain, I mean, I took the whole thing apart 2 or 3 times in the whole, and it was like, oh my god, and it was a disaster. But luckily, I think we pieced it together
You did
well.
it. It's
yes.
great. I mean, it's really good.
Thank you. It was not an easy process.
It's great. So how did you get into writing? Is this something that you always knew you wanted to do, or?
Yeah, I've always been a huge reader. I've dreamed of being a writer. I was a children's book editor for a lot of years. That was my career out of college for, I think, 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And I worked on a big mix of YA and middle grade, and it was like the best job.
That's so fun.
It was super fun. And at the time, I was getting my MFA in creative writing. And then I sold my first book, and I was like, okay, this is the dream. I owe it to myself to go after it. So I left my editing job, and also I was very burnt out, so it was good. It was a good time. It was good timing. I had my one book come out, and then life happens, right? And here I am, many years later with book 2. But it feels really special, and the connection to my mom is very special too.
Cool.
So yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your approach to crafting a story, or this kind of story? I mean,
Yeah.
clearly this especially was quite an undertaking, but...
Yeah. Well, I think, generally when I write, I think voice is the first thing that pops in my mind. You know, there's a character who just suddenly is alive in my head, and I kind of have to explore and see who they are and get to know them. But in this case, the world really came alive first. So I really focused in on that and trying to figure out kind of the rules of the world and where are we in time? How does it work? How does it work with androids who are part human? You know, what are the lines? What are the ethics? Lines get so blurred, and that's part of why I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But it causes you to kind of have to examine all of these questions in terms of treatment of the girls and treatment of the hybrid animals at the park. And
right, which that gets pretty intense.
it
at
does.
times.
It really does. And
Yeah.
those scenes were very hard for me to write because I really am a big animal lover. But so I think with this book, I think it's different maybe for every book. I don't know. With me, I just focused in on the world and trying to imagine and kind of build it up into a real seeming place, and then get to work on character development. So that was kind of my process.
So what does a typical writing day look for you? Do you have any rituals, or?
In my pajamas at the dining room table. I have friends who write like clockwork every day, who they get out there several thousand words a day, and that's amazing, and I aspire to that. But I'm really more of like, I have to have that lightning bolt strike of inspiration. And when I'm inspired and I'm in it, I can, focus and be like hyper-focused on it. And in fact, then I'm like annoyed when my son gets home from school, because I'm really in it,
Right.
And I have to switch gears, and that's very hard, as a mom, you understand, like,
Yes.
it's so easy to get distracted, and when you finally have focus, you're like, okay, nobody bother me. So for me, it's like trying to do as much as I can while he's at school, and often not doing nearly enough during those hours. But deadlines really help, and having great editors really helps. I try to just like turn on some great music, get into the vibe, maybe light some candles, just bring myself as much as I can into the headspace of the character, and just start. Starting is the hardest part, but once you start, the words start flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one day both of my kids will be in school, and then maybe I can.
I know. Oh my god. It'll happen. I know.
Like another year, and then
This is why I'm like, ooh, should we have another one? He's like finally in school.
Oh, yeah.
All day
This is
long.
why I'm like, we're not having another one.
Yeah. I'm like,
We have like a year to go.
You're only child, but we have a cat.
Yeah.
He's like your brother.
It's like another child.
Yeah, he is. He was my first child.
Yeah. What is the weirdest thing you've researched for a book?
Ooh. This one turned up some interesting internet searches.
I would imagine.
Definitely, I'm sure if my husband had gone through my search history, it would have been really funny to him. Everything from, like I was saying, to, different animal pairings, to like what would it look like, robot feelings, like I tried to read a lot about AI and trying to figure out like the difference between feelings and emotions, and there is a difference, and the neurological sort of experience for both of those things. So I really kind of went down a rabbit hole of like science and robots and AI,
Cool.
and it was super cool. It definitely was a unique phase in my internet searching.
Yeah, well, you
You
get
know?
a little bit of that with the court case of like that argument between
Yeah.
like if they could have emotions, or it's really
Yeah,
it's
there's a lot of philosophy involved in trying to figure out like how do you make rules for somebody who isn't quite human but who can, mirror human emotion. What is human emotion?
Right.
Like how do you define it?
Right.
What is do you need that inside desire, that passion to exist in order for the feelings to be real?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's
so
what I thought was
interesting.
so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
I don't claim to have the answers, by the way.
Right. No, but
But I think it's really interesting. Like my son has this little toy robot, and his name's Cosmo. and he's so cute, and he does like, he has all these little facial expressions, and like he gets really excited when you play with him, and he gets really sad when you're like, I'm gonna power you down, and like for a while after a while I was like, I can't take it anymore, like I can't play with you all the time. And I put him in the closet and I could hear him beeping like, I'm draining.
Oh my god.
And it was like really traumatic. I was like, I'm like murdering this poor little robot. And I would think to myself as I was writing, like, well, what about in 50 years when the robot looks like a real dog?
Yeah.
And like behaves like a real dog? Like, how do you, what does that look like?
Yeah, no, it's
anyway,
really...
that's my funny mom story.
I mean, things inspire
Yes.
all kinds of stuff.
It's true.
Okay, is there an upcoming book that you're excited for that's coming out?
Oh, well, I mean, so many. It's hard to even just say one. So I'm getting ready to go on the Fierce Reads tour in a couple of weeks, which I'm so excited. I'm so lucky, and I'm like just honored to be with these incredible women on this tour. So I'm really excited for their books, and I'm kind of reading, that's what I'm really reading right now. I'm reading We Had the Flame by Half Step Eyes Out.
So excited. It's like on my TBR.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
I have it at home. It's like staring at me. I can't wait. I Want to Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest, and Somewhere Only We Know by Maureen Gu, which, I'm super, it looks so fun.
It looks so fun.
So I love, it's like a really fun mix of stories and themes and genres, and I'm super psyched for all of their books.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, how about a book that you read recently and loved?
Again, okay, let's see. I will say I have an endless TBR pile. It's so embarrassing.
As we all do. Yes.
I mean, a book that I recently read and loved that was really intense and really dark, but I really loved it specifically because of its format, which it was, one of these that kind of breaks boundaries.
Yeah.
Sadie by Courtney Summers.
Yeah.
Which was so intense,
Yeah.
and I mean, I wasn't quite prepared, but I absolutely adored how she used the podcast throughout the book, and I loved that Macmillan, her publisher, created an actual podcast to go with the book. So it was just so innovative, and it just made the storytelling like come alive in a way that was really unique.
It's really good. It was one of my favorite books last year. I listened
really?
to it but I listened to the audiobook.
Okay.
And it's
that's
very
a whole other
good
experience.
because the podcast stuff.
Yeah.
It's a really good audiobook.
Yeah,
It's very
totally.
cool.
I was
That's
trying
good.
to read a lot of books with different formats just to kind of like get in the zone.
Right.
And like Jason Reynolds' like Long Way Down is amazing.
Yes.
So many cool
That's so
stories.
cool.
And then there's one book coming out this fall called The Survivalist by Courtney Scheidmel, which I'm reading in the galley right now, and it's really beautiful. So that's one that's coming out.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, and for you, what's next? Might we get more in this world?
I
Possibly?
mean, never say never. The book was sold as a standalone.
Okay.
So for now, I hope that it feels complete when you read it.
It does.
With room for possibly, you never know.
Definitely. I'm like, maybe like the other girl's perspective.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much.
Cool.
I mean, that's the fun part about once you build a world like this, it feels like you could just keep playing with it.
Absolutely.
So, we'll see.
Okay.
My editor is going to be out there tonight.
Okay.
So we can ask her.
I can ask her. If I
yeah.
can get more.
Yeah. My main thing is, promoting this big time this summer.
Yeah.
Then we're going on vacation. I'm excited. And my sort of heart and soul of writing, actually, even though I've only written YA at this point, is middle grade. So I have a couple of middle grade ideas that I'm playing with.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, it's really exciting, guys.
Thank
Seriously,
you.
go read it. I love it. It's like, I think this is my favorite 2019 YA book I've read so
You
far.
are so
It's so
kind,
good.
and that means so much to me.
It's
Bethany.
so good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and thank
so-
you all so
Yeah.
much for watching.
Thanks for sitting down and chatting with me. So
Yeah.
go check out The Kingdom, like and subscribe, and go buy the book.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.